This is the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Darshana Gochan. And now for a look at how the weather will be playing out for the next few days. Prime Minister Hun Sen commemorated the history of the arrest and death of two former prime ministers during the time of the People's Republic of Cambodia on Sunday through a voice message he sent through the messaging app Telegram. In the voice message, he confirmed that former Prime Minister Paen Sovan was arrested for treason and disunity, while former Prime Minister Chan Si died of leukemia and not because of a competition between Vietnam and the Soviet Union on human appointment. The Prime Minister's confirmation came after he saw a commentator on social media describe the history of these two former prime ministers differently from what he had experienced in person. Through a voice message sent via Telegram, the Prime Minister recalled the history of the National Salvation Movement of the Kampuchea or Khmer United Front for National Salvation that came from 5 forces, which included the 4 sides of Heng Samrin, Prime Minister Hun Sen, Bun May, and Chia Sot. These 4 groups came together to form a conference to organize the Khmer People's National Liberation Front based on the armed forces of the Cambodian National Salvation Army, which Prime Minister Hun Sen built on 2 December 1978. The Prime Minister added that after overthrowing the Khmer Rouge regime and taking back Phnom Penh on 7 January 1979, an interim government was formed the next day, which was called the Kampuchean People's Revolutionary Council. Later in 1981, the party convened its 4th National Congress to elect a new government, electing Paen Sovan as prime minister. But due to actions of treason and disunity, the party was forced to arrest him and send him to Vietnam. Chan Si, the Minister of Defense at the time, was then appointed as the next prime minister. Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that the main reason Paen Sovan was arrested was because he ordered a search of the houses of Chia Sim and Heng Samrin, also tried to search the house of Prime Minister Hun Sen, arrested some leaders who had traveled to visit their families, and caused some to flee back into the jungle to rejoin the Khmer Rouge. Prime Minister Hun Sen reiterated that Paen Sovan wanted to consolidate too much power as the Prime Minister, the party's Secretary General, and also demanded more control of the Ministry of Defense. He said that on November 28, 1981, Paen Sovan summoned the 4 key leaders, Chia Sim, Heng Samrin, Hun Sen, and Sai Phu Thong, to a meeting to remove Keo Chenda from his position as the Minister of Industry and to replace him with Chan Si, the then Minister of National Defense, while Paen Sovan himself demanded control over the Ministry of National Defense.
នេះជាផែនការតែប៉ែនសវណ្ណបានត្រៀមរៀបចំដើម្បីដណ្ដើមយកការកាន់កាប់កម្លាំងយោធាបន្ថែមខ្ញុំចាប់ផ្ដើមនិយាយខ្ញុំបានជំទាស់ជាមួយប៉ែនសវណ្ណតាមរបៀបថាខ្ញុំយល់ស្របឲ្យបងកែវចិន្តាទៅធ្វើជាលេខាបកក្រុមតែមួយគត់ដោយមិនចាំបាច់កាន់តំណែងរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីឧស្សាហកម្មបន្ថែមទេប៉ុន្តែក៏គ្មានការចាំបាច់ដើម្បីនឹងយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីការពារជាតិទៅធ្វើជារដ្ឋមន្ត្រីឧស្សាហកម្មដែរយើងរកអ្នកផ្សេងដើម្បីនឹងទៅធ្វើការកាន់នៅទីនោះតែម្ដងទៅការកាន់តំណែងនោះតែម្ដងទៅហើយខ្ញុំប្រាប់ទៅប៉ែនសវណ្ណថាសូមឲ្យមានការប្រយ័ត្នក្នុងការដូររដ្ឋមន្ត្រី3រូបទី1រដ្ឋមន្ត្រីការពារជាតិទី2រដ្ឋមន្ត្រីការបរទេសទី3រដ្ឋមន្ត្រីមហាផ្ទៃត្រូវប្រយ័ត្នប្រយែងក្នុងការដោះដូររដ្ឋមន្ត្រីទាំង3នេះតែមានការប្រុងប្រយ័ត្នប៉ែនសវណ្ណមានការថ្នាក់ថ្នាក់ជាមួយខ្ញុំរហូតទៅដល់និយាយថាបើគ្មានអ្នកណាទៅធ្វើរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីឧស្សាហកម្មទេខ្ញុំនឹងទៅខ្លួនឯងពេលនោះខ្ញុំផ្ចាញ់ផ្ចាលបន្ថែមថាល្អហើយបើសិនបើបងឯងទៅធ្វើជារដ្ឋមន្ត្រីក្រសួងឧស្សាហកម្មខ្លួនឯងគឺធ្វើឲ្យឧស្សាហកម្មមានការរីកចម្រើនហើយអញ្ចឹងសូមអញ្ជើញទៅប៉ែនសវណ្ណខឹងយ៉ាងខ្លាំង
Prime Minister Hun Sen further described that after this meeting, Sai Phuthong spoke with him and said that Pain Sovan had betrayed them, and therefore he should not be kept in this position of power. The Prime Minister said he agreed with Sai Phuthong, but the problem was that Pain Sovan was backed by Vietnam, so they needed Vietnam's help on this matter. He continued that the main leaders at the time held a political office meeting at Sai Phuthong's house in the absence of Pain Sovan, where they decided to arrest him and appointed Prime Minister Hun Sen and Sai Phuthong as the executors of the arrest.
ការចាប់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណនេះខ្ញុំជាមួយបងសាយវុថងមុនពេលចេញដំណើរខ្ញុំបានបញ្ចូលក្របកំភ្លើងហើយដាក់ទៅក្នុងកប៉ាល់ខោរបស់ខ្ញុំម៉ាក់ប្រហារួចហើយខ្ញុំស្នើឲ្យកាត់ប្រព័ន្ធទូរស័ព្ទទាំងអស់របស់ផ្ទះប៉ែនសវណ្ណពេលនោះខ្ញុំក៏ជិះឡានគេហៅថាឡាន Volga របស់សូវៀតជិះឡានបងសាយវុថងកាត់នៅមុខផ្ទះខ្ញុំប្រជាសង្ឃនិកពេលនោះក៏មិនមានមនុស្សច្រើនដែរខ្ញុំបានហៅប៉ែនអៀនហៅងួនសនស៊ីសុផុនឲ្យមកចាំនៅផ្ទះខ្ញុំពេលនោះខ្ញុំទើបនឹងមានកូនម៉ាណែតមួយហើយកូនស្រីម៉ាណាទើបនឹងបានប្រហែលជាមួយខួបនិងប្រពន្ធខ្ញុំក៏កំពុងមានផ្ទៃពោះបន្ថែមទៀតខ្ញុំបារម្ភក្រៃលោមានការផ្ទុះអាវុធនៅពេលនោះហើយខ្ញុំក៏លួចផ្ដល់សញ្ញាទៅឲ្យញឹកហ៊ួនដែលជាមេវិជ្ជាការកងពលតូចនៅពេលនោះកងពលធំ196ពេលនោះហើយនឹងមនុស្សមួយចំនួនផ្សេងទៀតដែលជាមិត្តដែលជាកូនចៅចាស់របស់ខ្ញុំឲ្យបានជ្រាបឲ្យត្រៀមអប់រំនៅសភាពការចាំបាច់ដែលអាចហក់ចូលទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញបានភ្លាមនៅពេលនោះនេះមិនមែនជាប្រភេទរដ្ឋប្រហារមួយទេបករៀបចំតែឲ្យឡើងបានបកក៏អាចទម្លាក់ដែលឲ្យបានឲ្យចេញវិញបានដែរ
The Prime Minister further stated that when they arrived at Pain Sovan's house, he and Sai Phuthong had to sit in the basement to meet Pain Sovan, who pretended not to know that there were guests over despite his bodyguards having already informed him of their presence. At that time, Pain Sovan had called someone over to play cards at his house.
ខ្ញុំមានការងឿងឆ្ងល់ថាហេតុអ្វីបានជាប្រព័ន្ធទូរស័ព្ទកាត់មិនអស់គឺនៅប្រព័ន្ធយោធាមួយដែលមិនតាន់បានកាត់ដូច្នេះខ្ញុំក៏ដឹកដៃបងសាយវុថងឡើងទៅលើពេលនោះពេលឡើងទៅដល់ខ្ញុំក៏ចាប់ទាញអាប់រៃទូរស័ព្ទរបស់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណទម្លាក់ចុះរួចហើយបងសាយវុថងក៏បានប្រាប់ទៅប៉ែនសវណ្ណថាប៉ែនសវណ្ណឯងប្រព្រឹត្តខុសធ្ងន់ធ្ងរណាស់សូមរងចាំសមមិត្តហ៊ុនសែនអានសេចក្តីសម្រេចចិត្តពេលនោះប៉ែនសវណ្ណខ្ញុំឲ្យប៉ែនសវណ្ណដែលកំពុងតែអង្គុយផ្គងតាក់ខ្លាឲ្យដាក់ជើងចុះហើយអង្គុយឲ្យស្ងៀមខ្ញុំអានសេចក្តីសម្រេចចិត្តអំពីកំហុសរបស់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណនិងការទម្លាក់តំណែងរបស់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណចេញពេលនោះបន្ទាប់ពីការអានរួចហើយក៏ប្រគល់ឲ្យអង្គរៈដែលជាអ្នកការពាររបស់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណចាប់ប៉ែនសវណ្ណយកទៅតែម្ដងហើយបើតាមខ្ញុំដឹងពេលនោះគឺយើងដឹកយកទៅពូជតុងរួចហើយហោះចេញដំណើរទៅប្រទេសវៀតណាម
Prime Minister Hun Sen clarified that he was sent to a prison in Vietnam, but not the dungeon that Pain Sovan once claimed in his book. He continued that after Pain Sovan's arrest, the position of Party Secretary General was handed over to Heng Samrin, while Chan Si was transferred from the Minister of Defense to the position of Prime Minister. He said Chan Si served as Prime Minister from 1982 until 1984, when he fell ill with leukemia and was sent to the Soviet Union for treatment. He said that he went to Moscow in September 1984 to visit Chan Si and asked Soviet doctors about his condition. The doctors informed him that Chan Si's cancer had already reached a critical stage and his death could only be delayed and not prevented. During this time, the Phnom Penh government sent a letter to the Cambodian embassy in the Soviet Union announcing the appointment of Prime Minister Hun Sen as the acting chairman of the Council of Ministers in Chan Si's absence. Chansi eventually died in December 1984, and his body was brought back to Cambodia for funeral processions, with Prime Minister Hun Sen acting as the chairman of the festival committee. Prime Minister Hun Sen was then officially elected by the National Assembly to be the new Prime Minister of Cambodia on January 14, 1985. Prime Minister Hun Sen stressed that the arrest and appointment of leaders in the ranks of the Cambodian government were purely internal affairs, and not as a result of any external competition between Vietnam and the Soviet Union on the appointment of people in Cambodia. The Ministry of Environment has decided to include lessons on the environment and cranes bird information in students' curricula in 3 schools in Borei Chulasa and Ko Andet districts, Takeo Province, to promote biodiversity conservation in the Bong Prek Lapao Landscape Protection Area. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more.
During the visit of the delegation of the Ministry of Environment to find out about the progress of the wetland conservation project of Bang Prek Lapal Landscape Protection Area on Sunday, 16 January, the spokesman of the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Nate Petra, has confirmed that the ministry is currently implementing 4 important activities: biodiversity conservation, community improvement, education, advertising, outreach, and research. For outreach education, the ministry has included education program on environmental issue and cranes bird information in the curriculum of 3 target schools: Sangkom Minchai Primary School, Kadolchom Primary School, and Ban Piet Klee Primary School to raise student awareness of the importance of biodiversity, especially cranes in the protected area of Bang Prek Lapal. The Ministry of Biodiversity Conservation has set up a sub-office to strengthen and build a side pool in the 16-hectare reservoir construction area to store water permanently to support waterfowl, especially cranes. In addition, the ministry also has various outreach programs such as screening of educational films and mobile audio broadcasts in villages adjacent to protected areas. He added that at present, the ministry has planted 5 hectares of flooded forests and 25 hectares of tuber for cranes to feed on and has controlled the invasive species such as Mimosa pegra, aphids vines, and locusts too. He believed that promoting cranes bird conservation in the area will improve the life of the community. Bang Prek Lapal Landscape Protected Area covers an area of 18,305 hectares and is rich in biodiversity, including 132 species of birds, 138 species of fish, and 30 species of aquatic plants. Recent research has shown that biodiversity is on the rise in this area, especially the snail population, which has grown to 2,000 and has no less than 2,186 nests. Many more, such as brave birds and large cucumbers. Srepokong, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen will attend the opening of the 40th Asean Tourism Forum on Tuesday evening, which will be an important event in the official reopening of tourism destinations in the ASEAN region after the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted the tourism industry for over 2 years. This international event will also help to promote Cambodia as a safe tourist destination in the ASEAN region. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more.
ASEAN tourism minister and senior officials from 10 ASEAN member countries will be attending the ASEAN Tourism Forum and other related meetings with a confirmed attendance of 123 participants. Part of the forum is the Traffic Trade Fair, which will feature a total of 187 vendors, 40 buyer companies, and 20 media institutions, and a total of 322 guests from 27 countries. President Provincial Administration has announced that traffic will be temporarily closed off on Daejeon Street from the intersection of Scandal and Peacock near the Tail of the Dragon on Soka Beach to the end of Street 502 near Tourist Boat Port 502 between 16 to 22 January 2022 for the 40th ASEAN Tourism Forum. In addition to the meeting of national tourism institutions, the ASEAN Tourism Ministerial Meeting, the ASEAN Plus 3 meeting, the ASEAN Plus 1 meeting, the ASEAN Russia meeting, meeting with relevant partner organizations, and meeting with the private sector and the International Tourism Fair, there will also be tree planting, golf programs, and island visits for the ASEAN tourism ministers. The Sihanouk Provincial Administration has said that this program will be a big step to show the readiness of Cambodia and ASEAN to reopen international tourism. The 40th ASEAN Tourism Forum will be held in Sihanoukville from 16 to 22 January 2022. The official opening ceremony of the Tourism Forum will be presided over by Prime Minister Hun Sen on 18 January 2022. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
The former president of the Cambodia National Rescue Party, Hun Sen, has returned to Cambodia from South Korea and has told EAC News that he was really happy to hear from his defense lawyer on Monday that the court has decided to drop the charges against him. Previously, Hun Sen was facing charges of conspiracy and inciting serious social unrest in Cambodia and elsewhere in 2019. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the story.
Hun Sen has said that while he has not received the official verdict, he has received information about his acquittal from his lawyer, including the acquittal of 9 other former members of the CNRP. He has told EAC News that he is currently in Phnom Penh, but 9 of his other colleagues are still in South Korea as they continue to study and work there. He said that he and his team are very happy about this news and thanked Prime Minister Hun Sen for accepting his request to review the possibility of dropping the charges against him and his colleagues and assessing the task of facilitating further settlements to the Minister of Justice. On September 29th, Hun Sen wrote a letter to the Prime Minister Hun Sen requesting that the charges against him and his colleagues be dropped, saying that the previous allegations were unfair because he never supported Sam Ramsey's November 9 reputation movement. The investigating judge, Deputy President of the Phnom Penh Municipal Court, Khoi Sao, issued the arrest warrant for Hun Sen on the 6th of November 2019 on the charges of conspiracy, inciting serious social unrest in the Cambodian and elsewhere, punishable under the Articles 453, 494 and 595 of the Penal Code. In the arrest warrant, the investigating judge ordered the public forces to search for arrest and bring Hun Sen to the Phnom Penh Municipal Court for legal action, ordering the director of the prison to receive and detain him and bring him to the investigating judge as soon as possible. With Hun Sen's latest statement, all such charges have been dropped against him. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen, the 2022 ASEAN chair, has told the ASEAN Secretary General to speed up negotiations on the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea to further advance the statement after being established for 20 years. The minister delegate attached to the Prime Minister, Kao Kim Hoon, told reporters after the meeting between Prime Minister Hun Sen and the ASEAN Secretary General Dato Lim Jok Hoi on Monday that the ASEAN Secretary General and all stakeholders have agreed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the DOC, and on this occasion, Prime Minister Hun Sen asked the Secretary General to contribute to encouraging the negotiations around the Code of Conduct for the South China Sea to move forward. In this regard, the ASEAN Secretary General has said that he will work hard to promote this work, especially to provide the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta, Indonesia, as a meeting place for negotiations on the COC. In 2002, Cambodia signed the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea while chairing the ASEAN-China Summit, which set the stage for a formal code of conduct to be followed. The terms of the declaration were established by the signatory countries only, promising to resolve differences peacefully and exercise self-restraint in actions that would complicate or escalate the conflict and jeopardize peace and stability. Prime Minister Hun Sen previously proposed a 3-point solution to the South China Sea issue, which includes the implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea to achieve South China Sea ethics. However, he told the international community to not blame Cambodia if a solution could not be found, because no issue in the South China Sea has been resolved by any ASEAN chair so far. He has urged the international community to wait and see Cambodia's implementation efforts first. Vietnamese Foreign Minister Bui Thanh Son has highlighted some important issues in Cambodia-Vietnam relations, especially the strengthening of trade, labor, diplomacy, and the South China Sea issue in a meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen on Thursday, 20th January. EAC News reporter Srai Por Kong has more.
In a meeting with the Prime Minister on Thursday morning, 20 January 2022, Mr. Bui Thanh Son has mentioned the relationship between neighboring countries, Cambodia and Vietnam, which have been well maintained for 55 years. He has added that to celebrate the 55th anniversary of the relationship, Vietnam hopes to continue working with Cambodia to further boost the two-country economic and trade exchange. During Cambodia's chairmanship of ASEAN in 2022, Bui Thanh Son has announced his support for Cambodia's ASEAN leadership, in particular raising the issue of the South China Sea, which the Prime Minister wished to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Declaration on the Conduct of Party in South China Sea, as well as the ethical negotiation in the South China Sea. Minister delegation attached to the Prime Minister, Mr. Kalkum Hun, has told reporters after the meeting between Prime Minister Hun Sen and Mr. Bui Thanh Son that, in addition, he has stressed the importance of the South China Sea, especially this year, 2022, the 20th anniversary of the DOC, and Vietnam will support the promotion of the COC. He has also added that Vietnam really accepts and congratulates the Prime Minister on what he has said about ASEAN. Trade between Cambodia and Vietnam is currently worth about $10 billion. In his speech, Prime Minister Hun Sen has mentioned his satisfaction with the relationship that has benefited both countries. He said what makes this relationship grow and provide such benefit is due to the peaceful border, cooperation and friendship, urging to continue to maintain this situation. At the same time, Prime Minister urged the upcoming Cambodian-Vietnam railway connection to boost trade between the two countries. Regarding the South China Sea issue, Prime Minister has confirmed that ASEAN Secretary General Lim Chok Hoi has provided the location of the ASEAN Secretary General base in Jakarta, Indonesia for the South China Sea negotiation, and meeting will provide a large hotel in Phnom Penh to negotiate it as well. Since this year is the 20th anniversary of the DOC, it is important to work hard to be successful in the future, Minister Kalkum Hun has told reporters. In 2002, while Cambodia was chairing the ASEAN-China Summit, it has signed the Declaration on the Conduct of Party in South China Sea, which set the stake for a formal code of conduct to be followed. The terms of the declaration were established by the signatory country Ellis, promising to resolve differences peacefully and exercise safe restraint in action that would complicate or escalate the conflict and jeopardize peace and stability. The South China Sea dispute escalated during 2013 when China began building the Spratly and Paracel Islands. The 5 ASEAN countries, including Philippines, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, are all in dispute with China over maritime and trade issues of great value in the sea. ASEAN Chair 2022 Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen announced 3 solutions to find a solution to South China Sea issue: the implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Party in the South China Sea. China will achieve the South China Sea ethic. However, he told the international community not to blame Cambodia if a solution could not be found, because no issue in the South China Sea has been resolved by any ASEAN chair so far. Also, do not despise Cambodia. The Prime Minister told to wait and see the implementation of Cambodia first. Sripokung, EAC News.
A spokesman for Hun Sen Party has rejected the content in a press release issued on 17 January 2022, claiming that party members decided to designate Princess Norodom Arunratsmay, the youngest daughter of His Majesty the King, the late Father Norodom Sihanouk, as the party's president, claiming it as fake news, because it is just a document created by a group of former party members using fake stamps. Speaking to EAC News today, Hun Sen spokesman Nguyen Raden has confirmed that Prince Norodom Chakravut, the eldest son of Norodom Ranariddh, is still the party's acting president. He has claimed that according to the law, 90 days after the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh, party members can only elect a new party president. So Hun Sen plans to hold a party congress in late January 2022 to hand over the throne to the party president, Prince Chakravut, officially. In addition, in order to compete in the 5th Commune District Council election 2022 and the upcoming 2023 general election, the current party president is also very busy with the activities in the provinces to strengthen the solidarity of local members. Mr. Nguyen Raden has said, "We already have a plan because some procedures have already prepared, as well as the drafting of statutes, policies, as well as some strategies, because in this Congress, we focus on some important issues. The first is related to the party's policy. The second is to nominate Prince Chakravut as the president, and the third is still the preparation of some statutes. But we do not exceed the time limit of the law governing political parties. The Funsinpec party spokesman has further claimed that in the case of forgery of the statement made by some individuals who lost their rights from the party on January 17, 2022, the Funsinpec legal team is studying the procedure to add to the old lawsuit that has already been filed in the court in the past. Mr. Raden has added that stamp used on the press release on 17 January 2022 was just created because the seal that has left from Samdech Krom Priya have the letter of the president in it and the stamp he used on Monday. His group just created by their desire. It is illegal. There are only two seals that we have kept at the Ministry of Interior, the seal of Samdech Krom Priya and the seal of the General Secretariat. Prince Norodom Ranariddh, chairman of the Supreme Council of the King and president of Funsinpec Party, has passed away on 20th November 2021 in France at the age of 77 because of illness. Prince Norodom Chakravut, the eldest son of Prince Norodom Ranariddh and Princess Norodom Mary, was appointed acting president of Funsinpec on 8 August 2018. According to Article 18, the new law on amendments to the law on political parties allows political parties to take steps to replace a party president who has lost his or her position within 90 days of the date of his or her resignation. Separately, Article 24, Paragraph 3 of the Funsinpec Party's Article of Association states that, in the case of the president, the board of directors must convene a congress to elect the party president within 60 days at the latest. The Siem Reap Provincial Administration is planning to hold the Siem Reap Sangkran event for the upcoming Khmer New Year, after a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. EAC News reporter Srai Porkong has more details.
Siem Reap Provincial Hall stated during a meeting on Monday that the provincial authorities plan to organize the Siem Reap Sangkran event to celebrate the upcoming Khmer New Year, as well as take this opportunity to show pride in the new achievement in Siem Reap province, such as the new 38-lane road infrastructure, and attract domestic and international tourists. The meeting was held under the chairmanship of the governor of Siem Reap, Tia Seha, and a number of important issues were discussed and resolved. The governor also stated that Cambodia has turned the page onto a new era of socio-economic development in all major sectors against the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, as foreseen through the global New Year celebration that recently passed and the further preparation for the upcoming Lunar New Year. The provincial governor added that he hopes Siem Reap will be able to go through the ribbon-cutting ceremony to officially inaugurate the new 38-lane road infrastructure with the presence of Prime Minister Hun Sen in February or March of 2022, so that it will be opened by the event of the Khmer New Year event and attract national and international tourists. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
The Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications has announced the launch of sale of the Molnupiravir oral medication under the brand name Molnutris for the treatment of mild to moderate cases of COVID-19 in adults at all branches of Cambodia Post in capitals and provinces from Wednesday, 19th January 2022. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
In a statement issued by the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications on Tuesday, Molnutris has been distributed for the treatment of COVID-19 at the Office of the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications to further prevent the spread of COVID-19 in a timely manner and to contribute to help build strong community immunity against the virus. The statement added that the convenience of the public living in the provinces, the Ministry has increased the distribution of Molnutris of branches of the Cambodian Post based in the provinces. The medicine will be sold at US $55 per dose, with one dose equal to 40 capsules, from Wednesday, 19th January onwards to private hospitals, clinics, pharmaceuticals, sub-pharmaceuticals and the public. Each person will be permitted to order 5 to 10 doses at a time. Private hospitals, clinics, pharmaceuticals and sub-pharmaceuticals with official business licenses are also eligible to order 10 to 200 doses of Molnutris at a time and can resell the drug for no more than US $65 per dose. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
A spokesman for Ukrainian security service Artem Decherenko has announced that on the night of January 14th, a cyber attack was committed against some government websites, including the Foreign Ministry, Education Ministry, and others. On the main pages of these websites, a provocative message was placed as the website's content was not changed, and leak of personal data did not happen, according to the available information. The Ukrainian government said it had restored most of the affected sites and no personal data had been stolen.
Ukraine was hit by a cyber attack, splashing a warning across government websites to be afraid and expect the worst. While Russia, which has massed 100,000 troops on its neighbors' frontiers, has released pictures of more of its force on the move. The cyber attack has followed hours after talk wrapped up with no breakthrough between Russia's and Western's allies, which fears Moscow could launch a new military assault on a country it invaded in 2014. A Kyiv resident, Anton Seriko, says it is a hybrid war which Russian Federation, Moscow is carrying against Ukrainian. It is, first of all, for their benefit to disseminate chaos and panics in the whole country. It's a clear subtext in the current unstable time for the relation between Ukraine and its neighbor in the east. It can be a message, I think, or it is a clear sign of instabilities of the relation. But there are also those people saying that the cyber attack is positive because it reminds people that they lived during wartime, that Russia is an enemy who would kill us physically. That is why we must always remember it, and we must be ready to drown Russian, be it blood, so that they will know their place on their territory, but not Ukrainian. Ukrainian spokesperson for Ukrainian Security Service, Artem Denyarenko, say, to prevent the attacks from spreading over other websites and to localize the technical problem, we suspended the work of some other government websites. Security Service of Ukrainians and Service of Special Communications, together with other state bodies, are investigating the incident and collecting digital evidence. The works of most of the affected websites has been already restored, while others will become available in the nearest future. Kyiv has said President Volodymyr Zelensky had proposed a three-way meeting with the leaders of Russia and the United States. Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, said the life and death of his country hung in the balance. Russia denied plan to attack Ukraine but say it could take unspecified military action unless it demands a met, including a promise by the NATO alliance never to admit Kyiv. Ukrainian official was investigating a huge cyber attack which they said hit around 70 internet sites of government bodies including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Cabinet of Ministers, and Security and Defense Council. Though they avoided directly accusing Moscow, they made clear they suspected Russia. Russia did not comment but has previously denied being behind cyber attacks, including against Ukraine.
Violent unrest in Kazakhstan has left 225 people dead, authorities have announced on Saturday, representing a dramatic increase over previous tolls.
A representative of the state prosecutor has announced that during the state of emergency, the bodies of 225 people were delivered to morgues, of which 19 were law enforcement officers and military personnel. Others were armed bandits who participated in terrorist attacks, and unfortunately, civilians also became the victims of acts of terrorism. Massive protests began in Kazakhstan on 2 January 2022 after a sudden sharp increase in liquefied gas prices after the lifting of government-enforced price cap on 1 January and escalated into mass riots a few days later in major cities, including Almaty. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev on Saturday has held a meeting with the country's security and law enforcement agencies and asked them to further look into recent riots and reform the country's security system. Following the results of the meeting, the head of state gave a number of instructions. Special attention was paid to the issues of comprehensively investigating the tragic events in Kazakhstan, in particular in Almaty, establishing the exact number of those killed among civilians, developing a new regulatory framework, and coordinating the actions of security, defense, and law enforcement agencies in critical situations, the Presidential Press Office said in a statement. The President has declared a state of emergency last week over the mass protesting. As of Saturday afternoon, the state of emergency was lifted in 10 out of 17 regions as the situation becomes still.
Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, a former president of Mali who came to power on the promise of honest leadership but was ousted in a coup in 2020 amid allegations of corruption, has died on Sunday at his home in Bamako, the capital. He was 76 and the cause of death was not yet clear. The former Malian president's death was confirmed on Twitter by his former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Abdoulaye Diop, and by the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali. The cause was not made public, but Mr. Keïta had for years sought medical treatment in the United Arab Emirates and was hospitalized in September shortly after being overthrown. Mr. Keïta, popularly known by the initials IBK, was president from 2013 to 2020, one of the most turbulent periods in Mali's recent history. Coups bookended his tenure. One in 2012 precipitated a crisis that led to his winning an election in a landslide, and another in August 2020 brought his arrest by armed soldiers who forced him to resign on television, later releasing him. Mr. Keïta was elected in 2013 with a mandate to stem the country's many crises, but during his tenure, they escalated. Insecurity has spiraled higher in Mali, a diverse, landlocked West African country known for its ancient manuscripts and evocative music. His rise in 2013 followed a crisis in which coup leaders overthrew the government, then rebels seized Mali's northern cities. Islamist extremists piggybacked on the chaos, imposing Sharia law in those cities, Timbuktu, Gao, and Kidal. A military intervention by France, Mali's former colonial ruler, initially rooted the extremists from their northern strongholds, but since then insecurity has spread across the region. When he became president, many Malians saw Mr. Keïta, who had served as prime minister in the 1990s, as an honest man who could lead Mali out of the complex crisis. But his reputation became tainted by allegations of corruption and nepotism, and the months leading to his overthrow were marked by burgeoning protests over a parliamentary election he was accused of stealing by installing his preferred candidates. It was perhaps his son, Karim Keïta, who attracted the most resentment. When the president was overthrown, people broke into his son's luxury home in Bamako, looting it and photographing themselves swimming in his pool. Malians greeted the coup plotters as heroes. Mr. Keïta had come to be seen as both a beneficiary and proponent of foreign interests, particularly those of France. In addition to his son, Mr. Keïta is survived by 3 other children and his wife. South Korea's Unification Ministry, which handles inter-Korean affairs, on Monday 17th January, has urged North Korea to choose peace rather than missile launches.
The spokesperson for South Korea Unification Ministry, Lee Jong-ju, says that the military detected that North Korea has launched another 2 suspected short-range ballistic missiles from Sudan airfield in Pyongyang toward the Sea. The 4th test this month to demonstrate its expanding missile arsenal. He has added, "We urge North Korea to choose peace-making dialogue rather than missile launch for peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula." North Korea keep firing missiles to show their missile power. South Korea has said that they need to continuously be vigilant, be prepared with defense systems. It's not the first time North Korea has launched missiles, so the people become desensitized to the danger because they fire missiles a lot. North Korea recently has fired missiles every 3 days. South Koreans believe that it is a response to the new sanction by the U.S. against North Korea and a message to urge South Korea to suspend the annual joint military drills with the United States. The repeat series of launches drew mixed reaction from South Korea residents. Some were worried and have urged the government to be prepared, while some felt indifferent due to the frequency of missile launches. Many of the latest SRBMs, including the hypersonic missile, appear to design to the event missile defenses. North Korea has also vowed to pursue tactical nuclear weapons, which could also lead to deploy nuclear warhead on SRBMs.
Maltese conservative politician Roberta Metsola is the new president of the European Parliament. While many praise the 43-year-old as a bridge builder, others criticize her anti-abortion stance.
Roberta Metsola has always made it clear that, for her, the European Union is not a complex bureaucratic institution, but rather a real passion. It's not a bloc that is rattled by crisis. Instead, a place to foster European values and enthusiasm for a project that emerged from the ashes of the World War II. Now, the conservative politician from Malta has to prove she can turn her words into action. On Tuesday, Roberta Metsola was elected President of the European Parliament, the same day that she has turned 43. Although Metsola's election may be a welcome birthday gift for the Maltese lawmaker, it did not come as a surprise. In a common agreement, the three biggest European parliamentary groups, the Conservative European People's Party, the Socialists and Democrats, and the Liberal Renew Group, had decided that a conservative representative would take over the post at midterm. Metsola's Malta's Nationalist Party is part of the center-right EPP group, seemed to be the obvious choice as she is respected across party lines and known as a bridge builder. David Casa, a party colleague of Metsola's and fellow member of the European Parliament, summed it up. We are all used to division and crisis, and Roberta's rise and popularity prove that it's still possible to conduct politics through consensus. The Maltese politician is only the third woman at the head of the European Parliament, following in the footsteps of her French predecessors Simone Veil and Nicole Fontaine. The European Parliament is the European Union's lawmaking body, representing the bloc's 450 million citizens. It is directly elected by European Union voters every 5 years. Metsola has failed to get elected twice. She is no stranger to failure. Metsola only managed to get elected to the European Parliament in 2013 after failing twice. Since then, she's seen a swift rise. In 2020, she moved on to become one of the European Union Parliament's first vice presidents. As a member of the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs, she has defended the right to asylum in the European Union. Following the murder of her countrywoman, journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia, Metsola has been calling on the Maltese government to ensure media freedom and fight corruption. Maltese member of European Parliament David Casa, who called Metsola one of his closest friends, has said, "It was her determination and ambition that made her stand out." Both Metsola and Casa had campaigned for Malta to join the European Union in 2004. Metsola has repeatedly said it was this goal that sparked her political activism. Many European Union lawmakers have rooted for her on Tuesday. Fellow conservative parliamentarian Stelios Kimporopoulos from Greece has described her as bold enough to be the face of an extroverted and strong parliament. As the European Parliament often struggles to be on par with the European Union's other institutions, the European Council and the European Commission, boldness is certainly a trait that could help push through the Parliament's interests.
French far-right presidential candidate Eric Zemmour was fined 10,000 euros, equivalent to $11,400, on Monday for inciting racial hatred over remarks in which he has called young migrants killers, thieves, and rapists.
Zemmour, a former political commentator, is competing with the more established far-right candidate Marine Le Pen and conservative Valérie Pécresse to challenge centre-right President Emmanuel Macron in April's presidential election. The court case concerned remarks he made on right-wing channel C News in 2020 about migrants who arrive as unaccompanied children. They've got no reason for being here. They are thieves. They are killers. They are rapists. That's all they do. They should be sent back, he has said. For several weeks last year, opinion polls have indicated that Zimor, who also has previous conviction for inciting racial hatred, had a chance of placing second in the presidential poll and facing Macron in a runoff. His campaign has since lost some steam and he now polled fourth. Zimor has said he would appeal the ruling. He stood by his 2020 comments, adding that the court was condemning him for expressing his views. A senior representative was also handed a fine over Zimor's comment, lawyers have said.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, 18th January.
Yemeni forces backed by the United Arab Emirates have joined coalition troops fighting the Houthi movement around the central city of Marib in a renewed push to secure the prize of an energy-producing region. The battle for Marib, where the Iran-aligned Houthis had advanced on most districts barring the main city and nearby hydrocarbon sites, has dashed hopes for any imminent truce that the United Nations and the United States have struggled to engineer. UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Gunberg, has told the Security Council on Wednesday that both sides are doubling down on military options and has warned of devastating implications for civilians and immediate peace prospects. The nearly 7-year-old conflict, largely seen as a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced millions, and pushed Yemen to the verge of famine as the economy collapsed. Over the past month, fighting in Al-Jawb in the north, Marib in central Yemen, and Shabwa in the south has displaced more than 15,000 people, according to the United Nations. The conflict is a multifaceted one with several Yemeni factions vying for power. The UAE largely ended its military presence on the ground in 2019 amid a military stalemate, but continues to hold sway via Yemeni forces it armed and trained. The Houthis, who say they are fighting a corrupt system and foreign aggression, largely control the north, while the government is based in the south, where protests have erupted last year over the deteriorating economic situation.
An underwater volcano near Tonga has erupted for the third time in 4 days, potentially threatening the ability of surveillance's flight to assess the damages to Pacific Islands nation following Saturday's massive eruption and tsunami. Australia's meteorological services have said that a large eruption took place at Tonga Bay volcano on Monday, but no tsunami warnings have been issued. Saturday's eruption was likely the biggest recorded anywhere in the planet in more than 30 years, according to experts. Dramatic images from space have captured the eruption in real time as a huge plume of ash, gases and steam was spilled up to 20 kilometres into the atmosphere. And tsunami waves were sent crashing across the Pacific. A footage shows people fleeing as waves inundated Tonga's capital, Nuku'alofa, and the afternoon sky has turned pitch black due to the heavy ash cloud. Tsunami waves were also recorded thousands of miles away along the United States west coast, in Peru, New Zealand and Japan. In Peru, at least 2 people died after being swept by high waves. No mass casualties have been reported, but aid organisations are concerned about contaminated air and access to clean water for people in Tonga's outlying islands. With communications down, Australia and New Zealand have sent flights to survey the damage.
An ambulance driver in Greece has been arrested after using his ambulance to conduct drug deals and transport bags full of drugs from the Greek border to the country's capital. The 41-year-old driver, who worked for a medical clinic in Athens, was arrested in the northwestern town of Igoumenitsa on Sunday. According to police, he was using the ambulance in his spare time without the knowledge of the private clinic to transfer large amounts of cannabis from the Greek-Albanian border to Athens in order to avoid detection. The curiosity of police in Igoumenitsa was sparked when they saw the ambulance driving through the town and then returning again an hour later. The Greek-Albanian border is some 20 kilometers from the town. A local police chief, Ioannis Papas, has said it was odd for an ambulance from a private Athens clinic to be driving around the town on a Saturday morning. And since ambulances have been used in the past to transport illegal migrants across the border, police decided to stop the vehicle for a check. When they opened the back of the ambulance, they found 13 duffel bags filled with 129 packages of raw cannabis, weighing more than 319 kilograms. When the driver was questioned about the contents of the bag, in an effort to avoid being caught, he insisted to police not to touch or open the bags as they contained hazardous biological material. He also had 900 euros and 3 mobile phones in his possession, as well as a small amount of cocaine. He was arrested for the possession, transport, and trafficking of drugs. The cannabis was transferred to a warehouse where it will be destroyed. Former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko is back in a Kiev court Wednesday as a judge considers whether to grant him bail or order his arrest in a treason case he says is politically motivated. Poroshenko, who led Ukraine from 2014 to 19, has returned to the country on Monday to face the charges and told supporters at the airport that he had come back to help Ukraine face the growing threat of Russian invasion. Ukraine's former president Petro Poroshenko has landed in Kiev on Monday, 17th January, to face treason charges in a criminal case he says was ramped up by allies of his successor, President Volodymyr Zelensky. He added to that message in a series of tweets on Tuesday, saying with the help of its international partners, Ukraine will stand our ground. In a brief standoff at border control, he accused the border guards of taking away his passport. He later emerged to a crowd of flag-waving supporters outside the airport. At a separate briefing, Ukrainian investigators have said that they have tried to serve a subpoena to Poroshenko, who refused to take the documents. Prosecutors have accused Poroshenko of treason for allegedly using illegal coal sales to finance Russian-backed separatists from 2014 to 2015. If convicted, he could face 15 years in prison. He was in court Monday for a hearing that ran nearly 12 hours, with the court deferring the decision to grant Poroshenko bail or order his arrest until Wednesday. Prosecutors have requested bail be set at $35 million. Poroshenko's return comes as Ukraine faces a tense standoff with neighboring Russia. Tens of thousands of Russian troops have amassed near the border with Ukraine, prompting the United States to express concern that Russian President Vladimir Putin might be planning an invasion. Poroshenko came to power in 2014 after street protests ousted the then-president Viktor Yanukovych. He is credited with strengthening Ukraine's army after Russia annexed Crimea and backed separatist fighters in eastern Ukraine. Poroshenko, however, lost elections in 2019 following a corruption scandal and charges that he had not done enough to implement political reform. Poroshenko owns a confectionery empire and is often called Ukraine's chocolate king. Forbes magazine estimates his fortune is at $1.6 billion. Now for a look at news-making international headlines this Wednesday, 19th January.
Russian soldiers took part in tactical exercises in the Rostov region near the Ukrainian border on Monday, 17th of January. They have conducted exercises on engineering exploration, fortification, and mining in Kamynsk-Shaktinsky. Russia has perturbed the West by building up troops near Ukraine and demanded that Washington pledge not to let Ukraine join NATO or expand the military alliance eastward, a stipulation that the United States refuses to accept. Washington has urged Moscow to reverse its build-up of an estimated 100,000 troops near the border with Ukraine, which has prompted Ukrainian and Western concerns about a possible new invasion 8 years after Russia seized Crimea from Ukraine. Talks between Moscow and United States have produced no breakthrough so far.
Golden sands have turned black in Peru on Sunday after an oil spill affected kilometers of shoreline, with the blaming of the recent explosion near the Tonga for the spill. Peru's environmental minister, Ruben Ramirez, has said that the oil spill has come while the ship was supplying La Pampilla refinery, affecting at least 2 kilometers of the country's central coast of Ventanilla. The Peruvian Agency of Environment Assessment and Enforcement has said it has initiated an investigation to determine its responsibility, but some are blaming the recent high tides of the spill.
The high tides have triggered a recent volcanic explosion in Tonga have been felt as far away as Peru. High tides spread across the Pacific after the Hunga Tunga Hunga Ha'apai volcano has erupted on Saturday, triggering a tsunami warning the shores of Tonga.
Thousands of protesters against military rule in Sudan have marched towards the presidential palace in the capital Khartoum again on Monday, 17th January, drawing volleys of tear gas from security forces. The protesters, who gathered some 2 kilometers from the palace, blocked a main road in the Al Diyum neighborhood and burned tires before starting their march. Huge crowds have regularly taken to the streets, demanding a return to civilian rule since the military coup on 25th November ended a power-sharing arrangement that began after Islamist autocrat Omar al-Bashir fell to a popular uprising in 2019. Military leaders have said their coup saved Sudan from chaos and that they will protect people's rights to peaceful protest. They reinstated Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok in an attempt to safeguard reforms, but he resigned earlier this month. Medics aligned with the protest movement say at least 63 people have died in clashes with security forces. A protester and a police officer were killed during demonstrations on Thursday, 13th January.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favourite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Prime Minister Hun Sen, the current ASEAN chair, briefly touched upon the Myanmar-ASEAN situation in 2022, saying that ASEAN has a lot of work to do for a variety of regional issues, not just the ongoing crisis in Myanmar. While speaking at the opening ceremony of the 2022 ASEAN Tourism Forum on Tuesday night in Sihanoukville, Prime Minister Hun Sen noted on the work ASEAN will need to do and focus on for this year, and said that ASEAN 2022 is not just about Myanmar as some have said in the past 3 weeks.
ខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់ថាកិច្ចការរបស់អាស៊ានឆ្នាំ2022មិនមែនមានតែបញ្ហាមីយ៉ាន់ម៉ាតែមួយនោះទេដោយតែអ្នកទាំងឡាយបាននិយាយយ៉ាងច្រើនក្នុងរយៈពេលប្រមាណជាជិត3អាទិត្យនេះខ្ញុំសូមនិយាយថាយើងមានកិច្ចការជាច្រើនដែលត្រូវធ្វើក្រៅពីរឿងមីយ៉ាន់ម៉ាហើយអាស៊ានមិនមែនជាចំណាប់ខ្មាំងនៃបញ្ហារបស់មីយ៉ាន់ម៉ានោះទេនេះជាការបញ្ជាក់យ៉ាងខ្លីដល់សង្ខេបដើម្បីចង្អុលបង្ហាញទិសទៅលើអ្នកតាមដានសភាពការទាំងឡាយសម្រាប់ការគិតគូររបស់យើងនៅក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌរបស់
He stressed that ASEAN's work in 2022 will have to cover and address many different issues, including how to revive tourism in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cambodia took over the rotating chairmanship of ASEAN on 1st January 2022, following in the footsteps of Brunei. After assuming the rotating presidency, Prime Minister Hun Sen traveled to Myanmar on 7th January to seek a ceasefire in the country, provide aid assistance, and open the door for ASEAN special envoys to find a solution for the country's ongoing conflict. Myanmar's military leaders agreed on all these points, and Prime Minister Hun Sen has decided to let the ASEAN foreign ministers continue this work. While speaking at the opening ceremony of the ASEAN Tourism Forum 2022 in Sihanoukville on Tuesday night, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that at present, vaccination is essential to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which many countries mutually recognize as necessary for the re-establishment of socio-economic relations and are moving towards achieving on a wider scale. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more.
The Prime Minister further spoke about the importance of reconnecting ASEAN countries to promote people-to-people contact and economic and tourism ties by continuing to promote the fight against COVID-19 while open tourism corridors.
ខ្ញុំចង់ឲ្យអតិភិបនៃកិច្ចការអាស៊ានឆ្នាំ2022នេះគឺការបន្តប្រយុទ្ធប្រឆាំងជាមួយ COVID-19 ជាមួយនឹងការបើកសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសង្គមឡើងវិញនិងរៀបចំច្រករបៀងនៃការធ្វើដំណើរក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌអាស៊ានដែលបញ្ហានេះត្រូវបានលើកជាកំណត់ផ្លូវផ្ដើមដោយប្រទេសឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីហើយខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថារដ្ឋមន្ត្រីទេសចរអាស៊ានរបស់យើងនឹងចូលរួមចំណែកដើម្បីរៀបចំជាច្រករបៀងធ្វើដំណើរសម្រាប់វិស័យទេសចរនៅក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌអាស៊ានរបស់យើងហើយក៏នៅក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌនៃដៃគូរបស់អាស៊ានផងដែរ
Prime Minister Hun Sen met with the ASEAN Secretary General Dato Lim Chok Hui on Monday morning, where he was noted saying that the work ASEAN needs to do this year is to revive the ASEAN economy, prepare for the 20th anniversary of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, the Asia-Pacific Initiative, Timor-Leste membership to ASEAN, and a summit to promote economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, with the participation of international organizations such as World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the ASEAN Development Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Srepor Kong, EAC News.
Three cities in Cambodia have been chosen as ASEAN Clean Tourism Cities. The awards for this achievement will be handed out at the ASEAN Tourism Awards ceremony at the 2022 ASEAN Tourism Forum taking place in Sihanoukville. EAC News reporter Chamrong Ritisit has more.
Battambang, Siem Reap and Siem Reap has been chosen as ASEAN Clean Tourism Cities of 2022-2024. The announcements of this result by the ASEAN Clean Tourism City Standard confirmed that the award of this winning city will be distributed at the 2022 ASEAN Tourism Forum in Siem Reap. The ASEAN Tourism Minister will present the ASEAN Clean Tourism City Award to 21 tourist cities in the ASEAN region. The National Committee for Clean City Assessment has been promoting the Clean City competition movement at both the national and ASEAN regional level to contribute to the promotion of smart city in ASEAN. The award ceremony is designed to enhance the attractiveness and competitiveness of ASEAN tourism city, as well as enhance the quality of tourist products and services in ASEAN city in line with the ASEAN Tourism Strategy Plan 2016-2025 to make ASEAN countries attractive destinations for tourism. The competition also promotes better living arrangements for people living in the city in the ASEAN region, as well as effectively participating in sustainable, safe, and environmental-friendly urban development. The ASEAN Clean Tourism City Standard has been developed by the Ministry of Tourism of Cambodia and the National Committee for Clean City Assessment in 2011. With the support of ASEAN Tourism Minister, who approved the standard and officially began implementing it at the 2015 ASEAN Tourism Forum. Chamrong Ratisit, EAC News.
Tourism ministers and other leaders and officials from ASEAN member countries, together with the ASEAN Secretary General, announced the official reopening of ASEAN tourism from Sihanoukville on Tuesday night. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more details.
The announcement of the reopening of ASEAN tourism is in line with the vision of ASEAN socio-economic recovery, based on the principle of intra-ASEAN tourism, which set the COVID-19 vaccine as the baseline to achieve the social immunity and encourage people to live in the new normal, and ensure services and business can continue to run in accordance with ASEAN principle on hygiene and safety for tourism professionals and the community. The move to reopen with such measure in place aims to promote trust and confidence while being encouraging to all tourism operators and service providers in the ASEAN region. Along with the announcement of the reopening of tourism in the region, the new ASEAN tourism logo with the ASEAN Safe Travel stamp, Safe and Warm, was also launched. The 40th ASEAN Tourism Forum 2022, which Cambodia hosted after a 2-year suspension due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has been held by ASEAN Secretary General Dato Lim Chok Hoi as a message and signal to the world on the reopening of tourism in the ASEAN region. As the 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen has emphasized the importance of reconnection ASEAN to boost people-to-people economic ties and tourism, while still promoting the fight against COVID-19 when opening tourism corridors. Sraipor Kong, EAC News.
National Assembly President Heng Samrin received a courtesy call from the Vietnamese Foreign Minister Bui Thanh Son at the National Assembly on Thursday afternoon after the Foreign Minister completed his visit to the Royal Palace of Cambodia. National Assembly President Heng Samrin warmly welcomed the visit from Foreign Minister Bui Thanh Son and said that his visit was an important contribution to promoting friendly relations, traditional solidarity, and cooperation in all fields between Cambodia and Vietnam. Both the National Assembly President and the Vietnamese Foreign Minister exchanged congratulations for the 55th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Vietnam this year. The Vietnamese Foreign Minister further expressed his congratulations and happiness to Cambodia for the country's continuous day-to-day progress in all fields. The Foreign Minister informed President Heng Samrin of the many achievements made during his visit to Cambodia. He paid a courtesy call to Prime Minister Hun Sen, as well as the President of the Senate, and discussed bilateral work with the Cambodian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prak Sokhonn. Foreign Minister Bui Thanh Son requested the National Assembly President to strengthen cooperation between the respective National Assembly institutions of Vietnam and Cambodia by increasing the frequency of visits and sharing experiences between members of the Young National Assembly Parliamentary Friendship Group and women parliamentarians. He also requested President Heng Samrin to facilitate and increase the mechanism for trade and economic activities between the two countries, as well as to promote and enhance mutual support between the two countries' respective legislators on international forums such as APA, AIPA, IPU, APPF, and so on. Foreign Minister Bui Thanh Son wished Cambodia success in its chairmanship of ASEAN and the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly this year, saying that Vietnam supports Cambodia's noble mission. Finally, on behalf of the Vietnamese leadership, the foreign minister invited the Cambodian National Assembly president to lead an official visit to Vietnam at an appropriate time. President Heng Samrin accepted this request and promised to lead a delegation to Vietnam for an official state visit at a convenient time in the future. The Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, A.K. Abdul Momen, has called on Cambodia to use its ASEAN chairmanship to increase its role in helping find a sustainable solution to the repatriation of Rohingya refugees living in Bangladesh to Myanmar. In a telephone conversation with Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn on Tuesday, Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen congratulated Cambodia on its role as 2022 ASEAN chair, and further congratulated Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn on his appointment as Special Envoy of the ASEAN Chair on Myanmar. During the meeting, the Bangladeshi Foreign Minister raised the issue of refugees from Myanmar's Rakhine State, who are currently seeking asylum in Bangladesh. He called on Cambodia, as the chair of ASEAN, to play a more active role in bringing about a sustainable solution to help repatriate these refugees back home quickly, safely, and with dignity. In response, Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn said that Cambodia, as chair, will continue to support the expansion of ASEAN's role through the ASEAN Secretary-General and the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance on Disaster Management to coordinate humanitarian assistance and a safe repatriation process. Minister Prak Sokhonn also pledged to work closely with all stakeholders and development partners through the ASEAN mechanism to ensure a safe and dignified repatriation process, as well as sustainable development within Rakhine State in accordance with the bilateral agreement between Bangladesh and Myanmar. According to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the Rohingya people have suffered decades of violence, discrimination, and persecution in Myanmar. Their largest eviction began in August 2017 after massive violence erupted in Myanmar's Rakhine State, forcing more than 700,000 people, half of them children, to seek asylum in Bangladesh. In the same year, Bangladesh signed a plan to repatriate bilateral refugees with Myanmar, but was delayed due to Myanmar's reluctance. The repatriation of refugees was halted after the February 2021 coup and political crisis in Myanmar. Nearly 890,000 Rohingya are currently living in the Kutupalong and Nayapara refugee camps in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar area, which has become the largest and most populous camp in the world. Secretary of State and spokesman for the Ministry of Environment, Net Piek Tra, has reported that over 60,000 traps were removed from within protected areas by park officials of the Ministry of Environment and conservation partners in 2021, in an effort to protect and conserve Cambodia's forests and wildlife. The Secretary of State has said that this is a 20% increase in the number of traps removed compared to 2020. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more.
Secretary of State Net Piek Tra stated that traps are still a serious threat to all kinds of wildlife, and Cambodia is not the only country with the problem of traps spread across the protected areas. Conserved forest areas in other ASEAN countries like Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, and Malaysia are also threatened by millions of traps. The Secretary of State stressed that these traps are the most threatening factor for wildlife and one of the biggest wildlife killers, since trapping materials are so easily available in market and sold for very cheap. He added that the number of traps is estimated to have increased, and in Asia it is estimated there are more than 12 million traps placed in protected areas across the continent. On behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Secretary of State Net Piek Tra expressed his appreciation and gratitude to park rangers, partner organizations, and all protected area community who have participated in removal of traps from natural forest areas. He mentioned that rangers have not only patrolled to prevent crime, the destruction of natural resources, and deforestation, but also helped to find, remove, and destroy traps to save wildlife. As a result, much wildlife caught in traps have been rescued and released back into the wild. And for those animals which are found injured or unwell, park officials contact veterinary officials for care and treatment before releasing them back into the wild. In addition to the 61,611 wildlife endangered traps that were removed, Rangers also confiscated a total of 758 firearms used to hunt wild animals in 2021. The Secretary of State emphasized that the increase in recycled guns also pose a serious threat to wildlife and that these guns are one of the most dangerous weapons. He further mentioned that chasing dogs also cause harm to wildlife since some people keep dogs in herd to hunt, which has the secondary effect of spreading disease of domestic dogs to wild animals and killing them in the process. The Secretary of State urged people to stop hunting and trapping animals, stop trading wild animals and consuming wild games, and to not believe that eating these wild animals can substitute for medicine or improve health, as increased human-to-animal contact can increase the risk of spreading other viruses. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has warned Malaysia's foreign minister not to be too arrogant after saying that his visit to Myanmar was arbitrary and unsuccessful. Malaysian Foreign Minister Saifuddin Abdullah had given an interview to reporters in Kuala Lumpur on 13th January, saying that the ASEAN chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen, should have consulted other ASEAN members first before departing on his trip to Myanmar. While speaking at a meeting with Indonesian President Joko Widodo this morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen asked Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi to send a message to the Malaysian Foreign Minister to not be too arrogant because he has made remarks that can be considered inappropriate coming from other ASEAN leaders to the ASEAN chairman. Prime Minister Hun Sen said that he considered the language used by Foreign Minister Saifuddin Abdullah to be undiplomatic, arrogant, and untrue. He further informed the Indonesian side that his visit to Myanmar had achieved some tangible results, such as the extension of the ceasefire until the end of 2022 and the provision of humanitarian assistance to the people of Myanmar, which helps pave the way for the special envoy of the ASEAN chair, the ASEAN Secretary General, the ASEAN Food Center in charge of humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and relevant UN agencies. He added that he already has some other ideas for the work ahead regarding Myanmar, but has decided to let the ASEAN foreign ministers continue this work instead. He expressed hope that all ASEAN foreign ministers would meet in the near future to discuss some of these initiatives. Prime Minister Hun Sen paid an official visit to Myanmar as the 2022 ASEAN chair on 7th to 8th January to help find a solution to the ongoing crisis and bring the country back to ASEAN after almost a year of national conflict. A spokesman of the Ministry of Interior, Keo Sopeok, told EAC News that the ministry has decided to permanently ban an American lawyer named Jared Genser from entering Cambodia after lying to authorities about the purpose of his visit to the country. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more.
On 7 December, as the Cambodian court resumed its hearing on Cambodian American human rights activist Saint Thierry, George Genser, an international human rights lawyer from America, attacked the court and the royal government of Cambodia, stating that a theatrical hearing was being held and that the Cambodian government would have more problems if Saint Thierry is convicted. Ministry of Interior spokesman Keo Supet stated that this was unacceptable and said that he believed Genser despises Cambodia and its state institutions. George Genser is a lawyer and professor of law at Georgetown University Law Center. He is a friend of Saint Thierry, who is currently on trial in Cambodian court for conspiracy to commit treason for backing Sam Rainsy return to Cambodia and plan to stage protests on 9 November 2019. Sripok Kong, EAC News.
The Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed concern over the armed clashes in the capital of Kaya State between the Myanmar military and the armed rebel forces, calling on all parties to come to a ceasefire, end all violence, and maintain the highest tolerance. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more details.
In a statement issued on Thursday, 20 January, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that it considered the recent clashes between the Myanmar military and the rebel forces have affected the progress made during Prime Minister Hun Sen's recent working visit to Myanmar. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs recalled Prime Minister Hun Sen had stressed that based on the experience and lesson learned from the Cambodian peace process, complete peace and national unity could not be achieved without the full participation and consensus of all stakeholders. The ministry further called on all parties involved in the conflict to exercise restraint and initiate dialogue to create favorable conditions for the restoration of peace in the countries, which could pave the way for the implementation of the ASEAN 5-point consensus. Khmer State is a state in eastern Myanmar adjacent to Mae Hong Son province, Thailand. On 8 and 9 January 2022, the Myanmar military launched airstrike on Loi Khor City, forcing thousands of people to flee their homes. According to news site The Irrawaddy, more than 300,000 people in Khmer State have been displaced by fighting after the February coup, and most of the Loi Khor population of about 150,000 continue to flee the Myanmar military's airstrike attacks. Sripokong, EAC News.
The Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has condemned the attack on an oil depot in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, which claimed the lives of civilians and damaged property. A foreign ministry spokesman described the attack as reprehensible and calls for an end to all violent acts that endanger regional peace, stability, and security and harm civilian lives. Earlier this week, a drone claimed by the Yemeni Houthi rebels attacked a major oil refinery in Abu Dhabi, which sparked a fire at Abu Dhabi's international airport, killed 3 and injured 6. British lawmaker Christian Wakeford, who defected from the Conservatives to Labour this week, has revealed on Thursday, January 20th, the government had threatened to withhold funding for a new school in part of his constituency if he refused to vote with the government.
Christian Wakeford, the Labour MP for Bury South, and has been an MP continuously since December 2019, claims of being threatened come after a senior Conservative lawmaker has accused the British government of intimidating and attempting to blackmail lawmakers they suspected of wanting to force Prime Minister Boris Johnson out of power.
I was threatened that I would not get the school for Radcliffe if I didn't vote one particular way. This is a town that's not had a high school for the best part of 10 years. And how do you feel when holding back a regeneration of a town for a vote? It didn't sit comfortably, and that was really that kind of starting to question my place where I was and ultimately to where I am now.
In response to the allegation, Prime Minister Boris had said he had seen no evidence, heard no evidence to support any of those allegations, issuing an earlier statement from his office which said if there was evidence, the allegation would be looked at. Wakeford has mentioned the threat, didn't see comfortably, and stated to make him question his position in the party before he defected to Labour. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who won a large majority in 2019, is facing growing sale to step down over a series of scandals, including admitting he had attended a party at his Downing Street office at a time when Britain was under a strict COVID-19 lockdown. UK's Premier is currently facing an investigation into the lockdown-breaking party by Sue Gray.
Shares in Japan's Sony Group fell 9% on Wednesday, 19th January, after gaming rival Microsoft has announced it will buy developer Activision Blizzard in a record $68.7 billion deal for the industry.
Microsoft sets itself up as a one-stop tech shop with historic purchase of video game giant. Its deal to buy Activision Blizzard, the maker of Candy Crush and Call of Duty, for $68.7 billion would be Microsoft's largest acquisition. Activision Blizzard has come under fire in recent months from public allegations of gender discrimination and sexual harassment, as well as worker strikes. all of which increase the risks for Microsoft's biggest acquisition ever. Buying Activision would add power to Microsoft's already heavy-hitting game business, which includes gaming unit Xbox and popular kids game Minecraft, and position Microsoft well to compete in the emerging metaverse business prioritized by tech companies. Microsoft has built itself into a tech conglomerate in recent years through big deals such as career networking site LinkedIn and coding site GitHub, as well as its homegrown cloud computing powerhouse Azure, part of a growing trend among tech giants toward operating sprawling empires. And Sony slides on this monumental challenge from Microsoft's gaming deal. While Sony's PlayStation is widely seen as having a lead in the generational battle with Microsoft's Xbox, the purchase of the Call of Duty maker comes as Microsoft is aggressively expanding its Game Pass subscription service. PlayStation is a major source of revenue for Activision, completing any potential decision by Microsoft to remove titles from Sony's system and squeeze its rival. Sony has strengthened its network of its house games studios in the recent year and has delivered a string of exclusive hits, with Microsoft left playing catch-up. The companies don't expect the deal to close until 2023. Microsoft has largely escaped the trust-busting scrutiny that its fellow tech giants have endured recently, in part by carefully applying lessons it learned in its huge antitrust battle with regulators 2 decades ago.
Australian health system is on the verge of collapse, so Prime Minister Scott Morrison's government is forced to make a desperate move to call for help from so-called backpackers. Australia throws out an invitation to backpackers on Wednesday, 19th January, seeking reinforcements for a workforce that's crippled by an Omicron COVID-19 outbreak as the country's healthcare system cracks under the pandemic strain, with more deaths predicted in weeks ahead.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison's government has sent a call to backpackers because the Australian health system is on the verge of collapse and the number of the dead is only growing under the onslaught of Omicron strain of coronavirus. Mr. Morrison has a plan not to charge backpackers a visa application in exchange for getting involved in any way in the fight against COVID-19 during cruises through the country, but also in other sectors that have been decimated due to the Omicron strain. Australian Premier has said his government was waiving the Australian $453 visa application fee for any backpacker or student who arrive in Australia within the next 12 weeks, and has encouraged them to see work as they tour the country. The call for backpackers comes as Morrison faces criticism at the beginning of an election year over his handling of an outbreak of the Omicron COVID-19 variant that has seen record numbers of new infection and death.
And my message to them is, come on down. Come on down now, because you wanted to come to Australia, you've got your visa, we want you to come to Australia and enjoy a holiday here in Australia, move all the way around the country, and at the same time, join our workforce and help us in our agricultural sector and our hospitality sector and so many of the other parts of the economy that rely on that labour, that workforce right now.
According to many, this desperate move comes in an election year when the Morrison government is facing huge criticism for failing to bring the pandemic under control, despite the most rigorous measure whose victim was Novak Djokovic. But the paradox is that Morrison sent the invitation on the same day when the American Center for Disease Control, the famous CDC, has announced in its American mid-year that 22 countries are on the list of very risky for Americans when it comes to traveling there. Australia is on the list as well. Officials have reported 67 new deaths and nearly 80,000 new cases by midday on Wednesday, with Western Australia to report daily figures. Australian businesses are grappling with the growing toll of workers out sick or ordered to isolate as close contacts. The labor crunch has created supply shortage, leading major grocers to raise their purchase limits on essentials and is hampering the country's economic recoveries. Another criticism of Prime Minister Morrison is that there are not enough home antigen tests or fast tests for COVID, while on the other hand, the prices of those on the market are jumping. This especially enrages people.
Only 7% of the African population has received 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccines, the WHO's emergency director, Mike Ryan, has said on Tuesday. In comparison, over half of the world's total population has already been double vaccinated. Speaking during a virtual panel on vaccine equity at the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization's emergency director, Mike Ryan, has stressed that we are leaving huge swaths of the world behind. Africa CDC Director John Nkengasong has echoed Ryan's statement, saying that there is no reason for Africa to be lagging behind other countries. He says that what we have seen over the last 2 years is a total collapse of global cooperation and solidarity. The CEO of the Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, Seth Barkley, has said the challenge with developing countries is giving them the tools, the finance, and the planning time to be able to roll these products out. On Saturday, 15th January, the COVAX Global Vaccine Sharing Program has said it has delivered a total of 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses.
Now, over half the world's, if we look at the population of the world, in total, over half of the world's population has received 2 doses of vaccine. But if we look at in Africa, in our African regional office states, only 7%. So the reality is that the world is moving towards a 70% goal. The problem is we are leaving huge swathes of the world behind.
So we're going to see a shift in the trends, hopefully, and probably supply 1 billion plus doses in the first quarter or two, combined through COVAX to the African continent. So we're in a far different and better place than we were last year.
So what we have seen over the last 2 years is really total collapse of global cooperation and solidarity. Period. I think there's absolutely no reason why a continent of Africa should be lagging behind with having 7% of the population fully immunized. A continent of 1.2 billion people is totally unacceptable.
Supplies to poorer nations have long been very limited because of a lack of vaccines, as wealthier states secured most of the doses initially available from December 2020. COVAX was launched in 2020 with the goal of delivering 2 billion doses by the end of 2021, but was slowed down by wealthier states' initial hoarding of limited shots, export restrictions, and frequent changes within its organization. Gavi, a vaccine alliance which co-manages COVAX, is seeking more funds to reach the WHO's goal of vaccinating 70% of the population in poorer nations by July. And now for a look at news making international headlines this Thursday, 20th January.
Israel's Defense Ministry has announced on Tuesday, 18th of January, it had completed a planned flight test of the Arrow weapon system. Last year, Israel has confirmed it was developing a new ballistic missile shield, the Arrow 4, with the United States. Its Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptors are already operational as part of a multi-layered system to destroy incoming missiles in the atmosphere and in space. The Arrow, or HEPS, is a family of anti-ballistic missiles designed to fulfill an Israel requirement for a missile defense system that would be more effective against ballistic missiles than the MIM-104 Patriot surface-to-air missile. Jointly funded and produced by Israel in the United States, development of the system began in 1986 and has continued since, drawing some contested criticism, undertaken by Israel Aerospace Industries and Boeing. It is overseen by the Israel Ministry of Defense, Homa administration, and the U.S. Missile Defense Agency.
A Mexican photojournalist has died after being shot in the head outside his home in the northern border city of Tijuana, official has announced. Margarito Martinez, 49, has worked for more than a decade in Tijuana for several national and international news outlets covering the gang crime and violence that has scarred the city, which sits on U.S.-Mexico border opposite San Diego. The Attorney General office in the Tijuana's home state at Baja California has said officials who responded to a 911 call around midday found Martinez's body outside his home with a head injury caused by firearm. According to Sonia Dianda, local journalist and representative of collective called Yo Sí Soy Periodista, Spanish for I am journalist, Martinez had requested protection from a state program aimed at safeguarding the life of journalists. Sonia Dianda has mentioned that they do request that the Attorney General's office pay special attention, especially because journalists who live in Mexico where journalists are clearly at risk, and Margarito had requested the protection mechanism for journalists less than a month ago. But it was too late for him. Tijuana has become one of Mexico's most violent cities due to conflict among drug gangs caught in tough war over trafficking routes. Baja California Human Rights Commission has condemned Martinez's killing, saying any attack on journalists constitutes an attack on freedom of expression and the right of society to be informed. Martinez was the second journalist to be killed this year in Mexico after the death of Jose Gambor last week in the southeastern state of Veracruz. From 2000 to 2021, human rights group Article 19 has registered 145 murders of journalists in Mexico, with 7 deaths recorded last year.
French actor Gaspard Ulliel, known for playing a young Hannibal Lecter, and Yves Saint Laurent, has died at 37 after a ski accident in the Alps, his family have confirmed. The actor is believed to have collided with another skier on the slopes at the La Rosière resort in the Savoie region of the Alps. He was taken to a hospital with a reported skull injury on Tuesday and was pronounced dead on Wednesday. Gaspard Ulliel portrayed a young version of the fictional serial killer Hannibal Lecter in 2007's Hannibal Rising, and fashion mogul Yves Saint Laurent in the 2014 biopic. He also has a key role in the upcoming Marvel Disney Plus series Moon Knight, which had wrapped filming in October, and was the face of the Chanel men's fragrance Bleu de Chanel. Gaspard Ulliel won the 2017 César Award for Best Actor for his role in Xavier Dolan's It's Only the End of the World.
For me, it was more about the encounter of two liars, two imposteurs, and yes, there's many different ways to feel, express love. So maybe it, in a way, kind of love relationship. But yeah, I think the most important thing for me was this mirror effect between the two characters. Yeah.
French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has said that French cinema is losing a huge talent full of charm, while French Prime Minister Jean Castex has said Gaspard Ulliel grew up with cinema and cinema grew up with him. They loved each other madly. It is with a heavy heart that we will no longer see his most beautiful interpretations. A Ka-52 Alligator Combat Reconnaissance and Attack Helicopter is seen for the first time during flight testing conducted by the Russian Air Force of the Southern Military District at a military aerodrome in the Rostov region near the Ukrainian border on Wednesday, January 19, 2022.
The new helicopters are a modernized version of an older Ka-50 Black Shark type. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the latest avionics and improved battle assault systems allow the helicopters to engage in combat at any times of the day and in any weather conditions. The arrival of new alligators comes amid escalating tension on the Ukrainian border, with Russia massed tens of thousands of troops, raising fears of an invasion and prompting warning from the West.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Friday, 21st January.
A bomb blast has ripped through a crowded market in eastern Pakistan on Thursday, January 20, killing 3 people and wounding almost 30. A police spokesman, Arif Rana, has recalled it was a bomb, timed device rigged to a motorcycle exploded outside the shop in the market. A 9-year-old boy is among the 3 dead, he has confirmed. A resident who was witness the explosion has said he was around 12 feet or so away from the place, but the blast was so severe that people didn't know what had happened. Then, the fronts of some shop caught fire, and a couple of the shop assistants were injured. A man in the house died. A child was passing by. Both his legs were blown off. He also said he rushed to pick him up, but he was dead. It was a very severe blast. A newly formed separatist group based in southwestern Baluchistan province has claimed responsibility of the blast. It has said a bank was the original target of the attack. Police has said they were investigating, saying it was premature to link this to Pakistan Super League. 20 cricket tournaments are scheduled to start in a week or so. Baloch separatists have been fighting a low-key insurgency against the Pakistani government to demand a greater share in the local mineral-rich resources. They usually attack government interests or Chinese projects in the province bordering Afghanistan and Iran, but an attack in a city like Lahore is rare. China is involved in the development of the Gwadar port in the Arabian Sea and other projects in the province as part of a 60 billion China-Pakistan economic corridor, which is itself part of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative.
Hong Kong health worker on Wednesday, January 19, in personal protective suit, went into pet shop to carry out a mass kill of hamster over COVID-19 fears. After tracing a coronavirus outbreak into a worker in a Little Boss pet shop, where 11 hamsters subsequently tested positive for COVID-19. Scientists around the world and Hong Kong Health Veterinary Authority have said there was no evidence that animal plays a major role in human contagion with the coronavirus, but having pursued a policy of zero tolerance for COVID-19, Health Secretary Sophia Chan has announced on Tuesday, January 18, she could not rule out any transmission possibility, and therefore the government could take no chances. Some 150 of the pet shop customers were also sent into quarantine, one resident says. It's not like every small animal is going to be infected, right? And they all have their own life. They should not be killed just like this. So I think it is really brutal and sad. Aside from ordering the cull, authorities have asked dozens of pet shops to close, while import and sale of small mammals were suspended. Buyers of hamster after December 22, 2021 were asked to hand them to authority for culling and not leave to them on street. A Hong Kong-based animal health expert has announced on Wednesday, January 19, that COVID transmission from pet to human in homes doesn't happen. After a hamster from a pet shop in the city tested positive for the coronavirus, Professor Vanessa Bars said the culling of animals from warehouses and pet shops after an outbreak was a sensible public health protection measure, but that the fear of infection in homes was overblown. A volunteer says the government should not have made a hasty decision to kill all the hamsters and create panic in the public. Hamsters at home are in cage 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If there is a virus infection, it is being transmitted by humans, not by the hamsters. So hamsters at home are very safe and they do not need to be sent here because people are worried that the hamster will endanger the safety of their families. About a dozen Hong Kong hamster lovers flocked into the entrance of a government facility on Thursday, January 20, with the aim of saving as many of the rodents as possible from a government mascot order laid down over COVID-19 fears. The hamsters are innocent. They cannot be sentenced to death because of the virus, said Ching Li, 18, who is part of the loosely organized hamster rescue group from social media. On Thursday morning, about a dozen residents brought their hamster to the New Territory South Animal Management Center in Sha Tin for culling, but volunteers intercepted most of them in an effort to take them in for safekeeping instead.
Waterfall in the Canadian port cities of Hamilton froze over as extreme weather hit the countries and eastern part of the U.S., leading to heavy snow, traffic jams, and flight cancellations. A footage shows Tiffany Falls and Sherman Falls in the province of Ontario had turned to ice. Traffic was snailed in Toronto, Canada's largest city, on Monday, January 17, as the snowstorm brought visibility to near zero short subway lines and left motorists stranded on local highways for hours. Buses were at a standstill, and passing pedestrians helped push cars up a street at the main commuters' road in central Toronto. The region was predicted to get up into 2 feet of snow, and an extreme weather warning was in effect. Authorities asked residents to stay off the roads. More than 4,200 flights in the United States were cancelled or delayed for a couple of days. According to FlightAware, nearly 90,000 homes and businesses between Georgia and Maine lack electricity, according to powerouttakes.us.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Francisco Paco Gento, one of Real Madrid's greatest players and a European champion with Spain, has died at the age of 88, the club has announced on Tuesday, 18th January.
Having started his career at Racing Santander, Paco Gento has joined Real Madrid in 1953 and spent 18 years in the Spanish capital until his retirement in 1971. The left winger has made 600 appearances for the club and has scored 182 goals. Paco Gento remained the only player to have won 6 European Cups, and he also won 12 league grounds, 2 Copa del Rey titles, and 1 Intercontinental Cups during his time at Real. The club has issued a statement saying, Real Madrid would like to express its condolences and its love and affection to his wife, Marie-Louise, his son Francisco and Julio, his granddaughters Aitana and Candelas, and his all relatives, colleagues, and loved ones. Paco Gento won 43 caps for Spain and has represented his country in the 1962 and 1966 World Cups.
Athletes traveling to next month's Beijing Olympics were warned on Tuesday by speakers at a seminar hosted by Human Rights Watch about speaking up on human rights issues while in China for their own safety. Rights groups have long criticized the International Olympic Committee for awarding the Games to China, citing the treatment by the Chinese government of the Uyghurs and other Muslim minority groups, which the United States has deemed genocide. China denies the allegations of human rights abuses. The Director General of the Global Athlete Group, Rob Kohler, has mentioned that silence is complicity, and that's why the Global Athlete Group has concerns. He has added that the group believes there is not much protection going to be afforded to athletes, so he has advised athletes not to speak up, and he wants them to compete and use their voice only when they get home. Rule 50 of the Olympic Charter states that no kind of demonstration or political, religious, or racial propaganda is permitted in any Olympic sites, venues, or other areas. Human Rights Watch researcher Yachi Wang has said Chinese laws are very vague on the crimes that can be used to prosecute people's free speech. People can be charged with picking quarrels or provoking trouble. There are all kinds of crimes that can be leveled at peaceful, critical comments. A cross-country skier who represented the U.S. at the 2014 and 2018 Winter Games, Noah Hoffman, has said the American team was being shielded from questions about human rights. Concerns about data privacy and spying at the Games were raised on Tuesday when a smartphone app built by China to monitor the health of attendees was reported to contain security flaws. Rob Kohler has mentioned that when it comes to surveillance, they know it's there. There are reasons that several countries have come out and asked athletes not to bring their own mobile devices. He further said that any person of a sane mind who hears these things must have concerns. The IOC has said that the Olympic body recognizes and upholds human rights as enshrined in both the fundamental principles of the Olympic Charter and its code of ethics at all times. The Winter Olympics are set to begin on February 4th. Several countries, including the United States, United Kingdom, Japan, and Australia, have announced diplomatic boycotts of the Games over concerns about human rights in China. Tickets for the Winter Olympics, set to begin on February 4th, will be distributed to targeted groups of people or selected spectators and will not be sold to the general public due to COVID-19, the organizing committee has announced on Monday, 17th January.
Only selected spectators will be permitted at the next month's Beijing Olympics because of the coronavirus pandemic, organizers said Monday. Beijing had already announced that no fans from outside the country would be permitted at the events and had not offered tickets to the general public. Monday's announcement, posted on the organizing committee's website, confirmed expectations that the Winter Games would have few onlookers at the venues, under even more strict conditions that imposed during last year's Summer Olympics in Tokyo. China has largely avoided major virus outbreaks with a regimen of lockdowns, mass testing for COVID-19, and travel restrictions, although it continues to fight surges in several cities, including the port of Tianjin, about an hour from Beijing.
The decision to cancel tennis superstar Novak Djokovic's visa reveals the broad, godlike power Australia's immigration minister wields, a spokesperson for the Australian Lawyers Alliance has said on Thursday, January 20th, after an Australian court released its reasons for dismissing the player's challenge to his visa cancellation. The federal court has said Immigration Minister Alex Hawke revoked Djokovic's visa over reasonable belief that the star, who is not vaccinated against COVID-19, can be a risk to the community. The court also rejected the argument that there was no evidence that Djokovic had ever urged anyone not to get vaccinated, saying it was open to infer that the public could perceive that he was opposed to vaccinations, since he said he had not been vaccinated.
The judges are not saying we agree with Minister Hawke. We agree with his reasons. As the court points out, they're not considering the merits or the wisdom of the decision or seeking to impose their own decision. Their role was to rule on the lawfulness or the legality of the decision. And what they were being asked to do was to find that the decision was irrational or unreasonable. And in essence, what they've said is that whilst other people and other ministers and someone else in Minister Hawke's shoes might have taken a different view of it, their view was that his decision was within the law.
The case shows that Australian visa holders are vulnerable to ministerial power. The world number one was deported from Australia on Sunday night, 16th January. Just hours after the court had dismissed his efforts to stay in the country to play at the Australian Open, where he hoped to win a record 21st Grand Slam title. That followed an 11-day roller coaster involving 2 visa cancellations, 2 court challenges, and 5 nights in 2 stints at an immigration detention hotel where asylum seekers are held.
That is an enormous power to be exercised personally. Too broad. We would say, because it can lead to dangerous consequences. I think the consequence and I think the issue in the Djokovic case, which makes it different to cases, for example, where a person's visa is cancelled if they come to Australia for the purpose of, for example, inciting terrorism, or they come to Australia to incite violence, and they've got well-known racist views, and that's what they're coming to Australia for. Here, Mr. Djokovic was coming to Australia to play tennis, not to do a whole bunch of anti-vax rallies. And this is no criticism of the federal court, because it has explained its relatively limited role. But you could get a case where a person has particular views about a matter of controversy that the Australian government doesn't like, if that person's opposed to government policy, if they've got a track record of speaking about that issue. A minister could say, well, that person may be or might be a risk to the health, safety and good order of the Australian community. It's a very low threshold.
The Australian Lawyers Alliance were not surprised that the minister has this godlike power because it's so broad. The decision of the federal court for them was fairly straightforward. This points to the dangerous precedent value of the case. And secondly, what it shows is that when it comes to visa holders, they are vulnerable to a minister exercising their personal powers. This is the same with refugees and people who have criminal records. Particularly in the last 10 to 15 years, ministers have been increasingly using these personal powers to cancel people's visas. A 20-year-old star, Kieran Riley, has added his name to the likes of Matt Hoffman, Kevin Robinson, and Dave Myra after the young British BMX star landed a world-first triple flare trick in mid-January at the Asylum Skate Park in Nottinghamshire, England.
The 20-year-old from Newcastle first came to the attention of global BMX fans when he landed a 720 over a spine at Unit 23 in Glasgow when he was 11 and dwarfed by the bike he was riding. Over the last 12 months, he has positioned himself as one of the most exciting BMX prospects and is now part of the British cycling setup, who considers him one rider to watch out for at the 2024 Paris Games. It was not all plain sailing for Riley at Asylum Skate Park as a triple flare, where he managed 3 full back flips and a 180 degrees rotation at the end of a custom roll-in and ramp was landed after 13 days of riding and around 20 previous attempts, which shows just how determined he is. Riley, who first started trying the triple flare in May 2021, says he is constantly trying to progress the tricks he got or learn new tricks every time he rides. When you do a double flare, you're pretty much doing a double back flip and then spinning just at the end. For a triple, you literally add another flip before you drop your shoulder and turn. It's one of those tricks you can only attempt a couple of times because when you crash hard. He has mentioned that he couldn't have done it without the help from Red Bull, who assembled an amazing crew for him.
Yeah!
Bayern Munich's Alphonso Davies will miss 3 CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers due to signs of heart muscle inflammation after he contracted COVID-19, Canada Soccer has announced on January 14th.
The news is a blow for Canada's side that lead the final round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying with 6 matches left and 4 teams in contention for 3 direct berths. Earlier on Friday, the speedy 21-year-old left back who tested positive for COVID-19 this month was ruled out for some time by Bayern coach Julian Nagelsmann after signs of mild myocarditis were detected. Davis will miss games against Honduras on January 27, the United States on January 30, and El Salvador on February 2. Canada are unbeaten in CONCACAF's final round of qualifiers and lead the standings after 8 games with 16 points ahead of the United States, who has 15 points. Mexico and Panama both have 14 points each.
Suspended over 65 feet above Sydney Harbour, a 2,721-kilogram iceberg slowly melted on Saturday as a performer suspended by a harness danced across it as part of the 2022 Sydney Festival. A frozen world floats high over Sydney Harbour. The performance is called Thaw and was created by Australian physical theatre company Legs on the Wall. It was created to bring attention to climate change and the ongoing climate emergency the world is facing. A colossal block of ice suspended over Sydney Harbour. Isolated on this frozen world, the performer scrambles to protect the iceberg from the elements and the industrial crane that seems to toy with them both. How long will the iceberg last? How long before the system collapses? Her future hangs in the balance, just like ours. An embrace of epic scale and within the context of an iconic location, Thaw will stop you in your tracks. As the performer moves across the iceberg over 8 hours, the ice slowly thaws in the Sydney weather as crowds watch from down below by the Sydney Opera House. A calf with 2 heads, an extremely rare condition, was recently born in India's northeastern Gomadi district. The calf was born on Saturday, 15th January, at a farmer's house. The female calf has a medical condition called polycephaly, which is the condition of having more than 1 head. 2-headed animals, called bicephalic or dicephalic animals, and 3-headed tricephalic animals are the only type of multi-headed creatures seen in the real world, and are formed by same process as conjoined twins from monozygotic twin embryos. 2 heads can be side by side and supported by 1 torso, or 2 heads can be directly linked with a torso supporting only 1. 2 heads can also share control of organs and limbs. When animals are born with this condition, at times their brains fight with each other. The Deputy Director of the Animal Resources Development Department in Tripura, Dr. Pritam Sarkar, said on Tuesday that he has never seen such a case in Tripura in the last 10 to 15 years. It is a rarest of the rare case, and often the survival rate is very low, at only around 38%, and it becomes very difficult to save the calf. The state where the animal was born has launched a scheme to give birth to female calves in order to boost milk production. In another similar case, a calf with 2 heads was born in Lazek, a village in North Macedonia, in April 2021. A robot dog has been given new powers to work out how to walk over any terrain by combining what its sensors can see and what it knows about its surroundings, just like people or animals. The research by ETH Zurich effectively allows Animal, a 4-legged robot dog, to move quickly over rough terrain while still taking care, a new trait for robots. Animal's legs provide unparalleled mobility when moving up and down stairs, climbing over obstacles, steps, and gaps, and crawling into tight spaces. It delivers reliable performance in harsh indoor and outdoor environments and through rain, splash water, wind, snow, and dust. Animal autonomously navigates complex multi-story environments. Once guided through the environment, the robot remembers every detail and finds the quickest route to perform its mission. During operation, the robot system safely avoids obstacles and reliably moves over rough terrain. The team used deep snow as an example of when a robot's camera systems will produce a map of its terrain that doesn't work when the robot puts its foot down. Animal's control system allows it to prioritize its sense of touch over its visual perception. The team put the robot's ability to the test on a hiking route up Mount Etzel, which stands 1,098 meters above sea level in the Swiss Alps.
Until now, when the robot used perception, mostly they were just assuming that the map is always correct. So if there's a step in front, the robot trusts the map and steps on it. But often when we go outdoors, this doesn't happen. When you go into the tall grass and those obstacles appear as kind of a obstacle, steppable object for the robot. And then if the robot always trusts it, we cannot go into those areas. So in this paper, we kind of train the robot to be robust against these failures. So if you combine with the body information, you can recognize that the map here is wrong. And then then you only trust its body information. It's trained end to end, so the network gets both information and tries to estimate kind of a ground truth information. And during training, I randomized a lot for this exteroception so that the network kind of learned to smartly combine these two. The slope was quite steep, it was even hard sometimes for us, it was quite exhausting. But the robot could go over all of these obstacles and we didn't need to help the robot. This controller, the robot can go to an area that is dangerous for the human or very far, for example, in the nuclear power plant or disaster area, on the other planet surfaces. And I think this can open up possibilities for those applications.
It's hoped the new skill could allow Animal to be deployed anywhere too dangerous or inaccessible for people, including other planets. Hundreds of four-legged robots, many of them made by Hyundai-owned Boston Dynamics, are already in use, some in hostile industrial environments, including one performing survey work in Chernobyl and another working on a BP oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. A group of young people have created a new social networking app called Uot App, which compiles information on tourist hotspots in Cambodia and doubles as a social media platform for travel enthusiasts. The concept of this platform was first launched in 2020, and the app was made available for download in app stores in 2021. The app developers say that they hope to bring together Cambodian travel enthusiasts to share their experiences, as well as present new interesting destinations in the country. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more.
The founder of Uot App, a fellow travel enthusiast himself, Soviet Pech, said that the creation of this mobile app not only brings together travel enthusiasts, but also support the Cambodian tourism industry.
Uot here in Cambodia, in Khmer word, it means show off, but we show off in the positive way. It's not in the negative way. When we have something like beautiful, like tourism in Cambodia, it is beautiful. It is very like amazing. Why don't we just show off? Why we hire? We should show to everyone, show to international to see our beautiful Cambodia. That's why we name it Uot App.
The Uot App is available for download on the iOS App Store and Google Play Store. Through the app, users can post their personally made tours and also promote travel products. Soviet added that the platform has a dual appeal for both traveler and business owner, as it will provide a taste of local travel, as curated by Cambodians, but will also act as a platform for business owners to advertise their services and products. The Uot app has so far been downloaded by more than 5,000 people and has received 3 awards, including Green Industry Award, the Khmer Enterprise Award, and the Award of Khmer Tourism for Future Incubation. Soviet expect that this app will be more popular not only for Cambodians but also for foreign tourists. He added that he and his team were confident that the app would be successful because of their shared passion and belief that technology can support Khmer tourism, and also because they have a very clear plan for their startup future.
We are confident that our app is gonna be very successful because there are 2 reasons. The first one is that our team is very passionate. We are a technology team that believes that technology could support Khmer tourism, and we create Uot, as you see in our app. It is very like smart app. And the second reason is that we have a very clear plan for our startup. So it is very like combined between like entrepreneurship and also technology to make plan that very successful for us and our country.
Sraipor Kong, EAC News.
Thank you for watching the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, check out our website eacnews.asia or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team on Monday, 8 p.m. We will see you then.